Coruscant at dawn wore gold the way a wound wears light before it closes. The Jedi temple rose from the city like a promise that had learned to stand very still. Far below, speeders stitched bright threads through endless air lanes, carrying senators, couriers, and frightened people who had learned to live inside the machinery of a republic that never slept. At the highest balcony, Yoda stood alone, not the small, bent elder the council expected to consult and caution, not the whisper of a legend behind a cane. In this world, time had not curved him inward. He was in his prime, compact as a star held in a hand, every movement smooth as water poured without spilling. He breathed, and the Force breathed with him. Not loudly, not dramatically, like a mountain that chooses, for one brief moment, to be kind. Behind him, the council chamber hummed with debate. It always did. War had a way of making every conversation feel urgent, while changing nothing about how long it took to decide. Mace Windu's voice cut through the air, controlled and sharp. If we do not lead from the front, the Senate will lead for us, and the Senate will not hesitate. Obi-Wan Kenobi answered with measured calm. If we lead from the front, we become what they need us to be. Symbols, weapons, not guardians. Yoda listened without turning. He watched the sunrise creep across Coruscant's spires, as if studying an old lesson written in new ink. A war was beginning. A war that smelled like strategy and sounded like righteousness. And beneath it, something else shifted, subtle as a hairline crack in a glass that had survived too much. Yoda felt it, not in distant battlefields, not in the training halls, not even in the Senate's dizzying noise. In the Republic's spine. He turned at last, and the council quieted the way a room quiets when a storm steps inside. Discuss, you may, Yoda said softly. Decide, you must. Mace's brow tightened. We need you here, Master Yoda. Need me here, Yoda echoed, and his eyes held no accusation, only clarity. Need me everywhere you do. Obi-Wan gave him a look that asked a question without daring to form it. Yoda answered anyway. Hide behind words. I will not. The war comes. Lead we must, but lead with open eyes. Into shadow we walk. The council exchanged glances. This was not the Yoda who asked for patience, until patience became a graveyard. This was a Yoda who had already done the patient work inside himself, and emerged sharpened, complete. He was not eager. He was resolved. And that resolution frightened them more than anger ever could. When Yoda left the chamber, he did not walk as if burdened by age. He moved like a leaf on wind, effortless, and yet the floor seemed to remember each step. In the corridor outside, Anakin Skywalker waited. He stood too straight, like a man trying to hold himself together by force of posture. His hair was still damp from training, his eyes bright with sleeplessness that came from ambition pretending to be duty. You asked to see me, Master, Anakin said. Yoda regarded him as one might regard a river, not for its surface, but for what it carried. Train with me. You will, Yoda said. Anakin blinked, surprised. You mean now? Now, Yoda agreed. Not later. Not when ready you feel. Ready, you are not. And so, we begin. They went to a quiet hall where the temple's stone drank sound. There, Yoda did not lecture Anakin on detachment as a rule. He did not recite the Jedi Code like a wall built to keep living things out. He sat cross-legged, eyes half-lidded. Anakin mirrored him, restless, even in stillness. "Tell me," Yoda said, "what fear is." Anakin's jaw worked. "Fear is losing control." Yoda's ears tipped slightly. "Control. A cage it is. Comfortable until you grow. Then cuts you, it does." Anakin looked away. "I don't understand." "Understand you do," Yoda said gently. "Speak you do not." Silence swelled between them, not empty. Heavy with things Anakin carried and pretended were not weight. Yoda's voice dropped, almost tender. "Attachment is not the chain. Fear is." Anakin's eyes snapped back. The words landed like a hand placed carefully on a bruise. "You're saying I can love," Anakin whispered, as if the temple itself might punish him for the thought. Yoda did not smile. Smiles were too easy, too comforting for truths that were sharp. "Love is a river," he said. "Hold it in hands you cannot. Dam it you may. Flood comes then. Drown you will." Anakin swallowed. "Then what do I do?" Yoda opened his eyes fully. In them was no judgment, only the loneliness of someone who had walked far enough to see that rules were sometimes fear dressed as wisdom. "Let it flow," Yoda said, "and do not follow it into storm." For a time, Anakin did respond. He trained with a new kind of discipline, not the clenched discipline of obedience, but something softer. Attention. When he sparred, he listened. When he meditated, he did not treat stillness as punishment. He began tentatively to name what he felt rather than bury it. He did not become calm, but he became honest. And honesty, for Anakin, was the first true act of courage. While Anakin learned to breathe without fighting his own heart, Yoda turned his prime toward the war. He did not become a banner waved over clone battalions. He did not relish the battlefield. He treated each mission like surgery, minimal violence, precise cuts, the least damage to living tissue. He moved through the galaxy quietly, appearing where separatist leadership thought themselves safe. The reports that returned were strange, almost mythical. A green blade seen only as a line of light, a commander captured without a shot fired, a blockade unraveled as if a hand had simply untied it. The separatists began whispering a name with unease, not because it was old, because it sounded new again. Count Dooku felt it most sharply. On a ruined terrace above a city whose name no longer mattered, Dooku faced Yoda early in the war, expecting the tired legend, expecting the old master who could be delayed, outmaneuvered, exploited. What arrived was a stillness that made his own elegance feel noisy. Yoda did not attack first. He waited, blade unlit, hands folded as if in conversation. Dooku ignited his red saber with practiced grace. "Master Yoda," he said, voice smooth as polished stone. "The Council finally sends its greatest weapon." "A weapon you think I am," Yoda replied. "A mirror I am. See yourself you will." Dooku's eyes narrowed. He lunged, aristocratic, flawless. Yoda moved. It was not speed that shocked Dooku, though the speed was terrifying. It was the absence of strain. Yoda's body flowed through forms like water poured from a perfect vessel. Each parry was gentle. Each step was placed. The green blade did not slash. It drew lines of refusal. Dooku pressed harder, anger bleeding into precision. Yoda yielded, and yet Dooku felt himself being guided, as if the duel was not a fight, but a lesson he had not consented to learn. At last, Yoda disarmed him with a motion so small, it looked like mercy. Dooku's saber spun away into dust. Yoda's blade hovered near Dooku's throat without touching. Dooku's breath came shallow. You could kill me. Yoda's eyes were quiet. Could, yes. Must, no. Dooku stared at him, shaken not by defeat, but by the truth the defeat carried. Yoda had not grown weaker with age. He had grown sharper. Dooku retreated into shadow, and in the darkness behind Dooku's eyes, something like doubt flickered. Not doubt in his cause, doubt in his inevitability. Far away, Chancellor Palpatine recalculated. He had built his plan on predictable shapes. Jedi who clung to tradition, a republic that clung to comfort, a war that clung to fear. Prime Yoda was an inconvenience, not because of power, because of presence. Yoda began to sense the hidden corruption more clearly as he moved between worlds. It was not a single villain. It was a pattern. Contracts signed too quickly, intelligence that arrived too conveniently, corporations growing fat on suffering and calling it protection. The Jedi were becoming generals faster than they were becoming comfortable with it. They stood at strategy tables and spoke in numbers and supply lines and casualty projections. And each time they did, the force around them dimmed a fraction, like a lamp being covered by layers of cloth. Yoda felt imbalance, not in Anakin, in the Republic. He returned to Coruscant more often, slipping through the Senate's marble corridors like a rumor. He listened, not to speeches, but to what speeches avoided. He watched Palpatine's gentle hands and noticed how often those hands guided others into positions that benefited him. Palpatine welcomed him each time with the same warmth. Master Yoda, he would say, as if greeting an old friend. And Yoda would nod, as if the greeting were truth. In private, in a quiet office where the city's noise became a distant ocean, Yoda confronted Palpatine without accusation. Accusation required proof. He had certainty, not evidence. Strange, the war is, Yoda said. Palpatine smiled. War is always strange, Master Yoda. Tragic. Unpredictable. Unpredictable, Yoda echoed. Yet convenient it is. Emergency powers. Contracts. Fear. Palpatine's eyes softened, sympathetic. You think I enjoy this? I'm trying to hold the Republic together. Hold, Yoda said, and his voice carried something like sadness. Or squeeze. Palpatine laughed softly, the sound of a man amused by misunderstanding. Even you serve politics, Master Yoda. The Jedi serve the Senate serves the people. We are all connected. Connected, Yoda agreed, but chained. We need not be. Palpatine leaned forward, hands clasped. And if your order is the chain, Master Yoda, if the Jedi decide what is right for the galaxy, who holds them accountable? It was a philosophical blade, sharpened to cut doubt into certainty. Palpatine did not reveal himself as a monster. He reframed the Jedi as one. And outside that office, whispers began. Some senators saw Yoda's presence as overreach. Some Jedi felt his field leadership made them look hesitant. The council, already strained, began to feel the pressure of being guided by a master who seemed too complete, too singular. Seeds of mistrust grew, not because Yoda was wrong, but because rightness can feel like judgment to those still unsure of themselves. Then the visions came for Anakin. Not vague nightmares, not symbolic warnings. Clear images of Padme gasping, of life slipping away while he stood powerless, of a future that tasted like ash. Anakin did not go to Palpatine first in this timeline. He went to Yoda. He found the Master in a training hall lit by evening light, the air quiet enough to hear the city's distant pulse. Anakin's voice shook. "I've been seeing her die." Yoda did not tell him to let go. He did not dismiss it as attachment's poison. He did not turn away from the rawness in Anakin's face. He sat with him. "Tell me," Yoda said, "what you fear." Anakin clenched his fists, then forced them open. "That I'll lose her. That I'll do everything right and still," his throat tightened, "still fail." Yoda's gaze softened, and for a moment he looked not ancient or prime, but simply tired of watching beings break themselves trying to outrun pain. "Fail, you may," Yoda said. "Fail, we all do. The question is, what you become when you cannot control the river." Anakin's eyes filled, furious at the weakness. "Then what do I do?" Yoda placed a hand on Anakin's forearm. The touch was light, grounding. "Stay," he said, with fear. "Stay. Do not fight it. Do not feed it. Watch it. Breathe it. Let it pass like cloud." Anakin nodded, trembling. He tried. For days, for weeks, he tried. And because he tried, Palpatine's offer had to change. Palpatine did not simply promise power. He promised certainty. A way to make the visions stop by making the future obey. One path promised peace with uncertainty. The other promised control. Anakin hesitated longer than he ever had, which made the eventual fracture more painful, because it meant Anakin understood what he was choosing to betray. Palpatine engineered a crisis that forced Yoda to choose. A system fell on the Outer Rim, its defenses collapsing in a way that required immediate Jedi intervention. At the same time, the Senate on Coruscant teetered toward granting Palpatine even broader emergency authority, framed as necessary because the Jedi are spread too thin. If Yoda stayed in the field, Palpatine consolidated power. If Yoda returned, key worlds would burn. Yoda chose to return. He believed institutions mattered more than territory. Worlds could be retaken. A republic, once broken into dictatorship, was harder to heal. It was principle over passion, and Palpatine used that principle as the lever that moved everything else. Order 66 was triggered earlier than anyone expected. Not faintly, not like distant thunder, violently. The Force screamed, a sudden mass severing that tore through Yoda's senses like a blade through silk. He did not stumble. He did not freeze. He moved. In the temple, clones raised rifles, betrayal written into their posture like a new command tattooed onto their bones. Prime Yoda became what the Jedi once were in the oldest stories, untouchable. His green blade drew arcs that were not anger, but refusal. He flowed through corridors, through smoke, through panic, catching falling younglings, deflecting blaster bolts that would have ended futures that had barely begun. He did not shout orders. He made space. Space for survival. Space for mercy. Space for the Force to breathe through the chaos. Then Anakin arrived, not fully Vader, not fully redeemed. He entered the temple's central chamber like a man walking into a dream he had begged for and now feared. His eyes were haunted. His hands trembled near his saber as if unsure whether to draw it. Yoda stood waiting amid fallen stone and scattered light. The air between them was tight with everything unspoken. "You came," Yoda said. Anakin's voice was rough. "I don't know what I'm doing." Yoda murmured, and there was grief in the sound. "No, you do. Admit, you cannot." Anakin's jaw clenched. "He said I could save her." "Save her," Yoda repeated, "or own her fate." Anakin's eyes flashed. "You don't understand." Yoda's blade remained lit, but lowered. "Understand," he said softly. "Too well, I do." Anakin ignited his saber, blue light shaking against the green. The duel began like a dance that hated itself. Fast, elegant, devastating. Yoda did not overpower Anakin immediately. He could have. His prime was a storm held in perfect restraint. But he tried to reach him. Each strike was measured, each parry a question. Anakin fought like a man splitting in half, his precision fractured, power surging where technique failed. The chamber's pillars cracked under the violence of his uncertainty. In the shadows beyond sight, Palpatine watched through the Force, waiting for Yoda to kill, waiting for the Jedi to become the monster in the story he was writing. Yoda disarmed Anakin at last with a motion as graceful as sorrow. The blue saber flew away, clattering across stone. Anakin fell to one knee, breathing hard, eyes wide with the shock of being spared. Yoda's blade hovered near Anakin's throat. He could end it. He did not. "Live," Yoda said, "and choose again." That hesitation cost him. Palpatine arrived like a curtain dropping. His presence filled the chamber with cold sweetness, the scent of rot hidden beneath perfume. His face was calm, almost regretful. "Master Yoda," Palpatine said, "you see what your compassion yields. Disorder, betrayal, weakness." Yoda turned his head slightly, never taking his eyes off Anakin. "Weakness," he said, "is fear, pretending to be control." Palpatine's smile thinned. "I offered the galaxy certainty. You offer it doubt." "I offer it truth," Yoda replied. The three-way confrontation unfolded not as spectacle, but as inevitability. Yoda fought both Sith. He was extraordinary. He moved like the Force given form, green light carving clean lines through darkness, his body a perfect instrument of restraint. He did not hate them. He refused them. But even extraordinary could not defeat a plan set in motion years prior, because the battle was not here. It was in the Senate, in contracts, in whispered narratives, in the slow training of an entire galaxy to accept chains as safety. The temple fell anyway, not because Yoda was weak, because the system was already corrupted. Yoda escaped with surviving younglings, carrying them through hidden passages and stolen air shafts into a night that smelled of smoke and morning. He did not retreat in shame. He retreated with sorrowful understanding. Power could not reform a system that did not wish to be healed. Anakin survived, not fully lost, not fully found. The Empire rose, but shakier, less absolute, because Anakin's fracture remained visible, a crack in the mask Palpatine wanted him to wear. And Yoda, in exile, was not broken. He was reflective, He understood something deeper than victory. The Jedi Order's rigidity had created fragility. Its fear of attachment had trained its members to fear themselves. Even in his prime, even at his strongest, he could not prevent collapse, because mastery of combat was not mastery of destiny. Years later, on a quiet world where the sky was wide and honest, Yoda stood at dawn again, not on a balcony above a city of shining lies, on bare earth. He breathed, and the Force breathed with him. He was balanced, not defeated, simply alone. And in that loneliness, there was a lesson the galaxy would learn too late. Grace under pressure does not always save the day. Sometimes it only saves the soul.